It was the summer of 1994. So this was the first summer that Beth and I were married. And I was working nights at the time at a school supply warehouse. Beth was doing food service at a nursing home. And it was a hot summer day. And we were both home. We decided we would go take in a movie. And the movie we chose was Speed. I still vividly remember that, walking out of that movie to this day. We're kind of coming out of the mall into the bright sunshine. I remember turning to Beth and saying, "That was the most exciting movie I've ever seen." And to this day, I still feel that way. Sadly, that was like 26 years ago, though, and I realize some of you maybe have never even seen this movie. So don't worry, I'm here to help. Speed is this highly improbable movie where the bad guy, played with scenery-chewing relish by Dennis Hopper, plants a bomb on the bottom of a Los Angeles transit bus, and he wires it in such a way that once the bus goes 50 miles an hour, the bomb will be triggered, and if the bus at any time falls slower than 50 miles per hour, the bomb will explode. Sandra Bullock plays a frazzled young woman who ends up driving the bus through a series of improbable events, and Keanu Reeves is the hotshot police officer who's coming to save the day. At the end of the movie, they become a couple, even though they both understand that relationships that begin under incredible duress rarely work out, and by the time they film the sequel, Speed 2, their feelings must have been true because they're no longer together, but I just prefer to pretend Speed 2 never happened. It's the same movie, only on a boat. Anyway, the action in Speed occurs as this transit bus is forced to travel the busy streets and congested freeways of Los Angeles without slowing down. At one point, it even jumps an incomplete overpass, and yeah, I believe that could happen. At another point, it's forced to go down the road in the wrong direction, and there are these barricades, road signs that are set up to prevent traffic from going through. And this bus traveling 50 miles an hour just obliterates those signs like so many toothpicks. A toll collector's gate is no match for a speeding bus with a bomb strapped to its belly. It's that picture of a wooden gate splintering into 1,000 pieces before an irresistible force that occurs to me whenever I read Jesus' statement in Matthew 16, verse 18. Here's what it says. It says, "And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it." This is an odd metaphor, I know, but movie Speed is what I think of whenever I read this verse. Jesus' aim for the church is that it smash through the forces of evil like a runaway bus. I love this verse. It says several great things about the church. For one thing, Jesus calls it his church. He says, "It's my church." He owns it. He takes responsibility for it. He says, "I will build my church." That's a promise from Jesus that whatever happens in the church, and right now it feels like there are things, external circumstances that are working against the church, whether it's the pandemic or a changing culture, or there's internal forces sometimes working against the church. We see scandal after scandal of leaders within the church who are kind of falling away. And Jesus says, whatever happens, in the midst of all of these difficulties, it's my church, and I'm going to build it. And here's the promise. The gates of Hades, the gates of hell, are not going to overcome it. Now, we need to understand what Jesus is saying here. I think growing up, I always had this image of the church like a fortress, right? When I would read this verse, I'd think like the battle from the Two Towers, the Lord of the Rings, the battle for Helm's Deep, where the church is this fortress and people are manning the walls, and there's all these forces of evil kind of storming the walls, and the church is fighting them back. And Jesus is sort of promising, hey, the forces of evil are going to come at us, but we're going to stand strong. And I think Jesus does mean that in some sense, and that at least that image is somewhat true, but that's not what this verse is saying. What this verse is talking about is not the gates of the church, not the fortress of the church, but rather the gates of hell. He's imagining the forces of hell hunkered down in their outpost, and he imagines the church as an army that is bringing the fight to evil, that the church is the people of Jesus going out into the world to be good, to make change, to spread the gospel, to proclaim the good news of salvation. And the promise is that when we stand up against those forces of evil, when we take the fight to those forces of evil, Jesus says those gates of hell, they don't stand a chance. Right? Like wooden fencing in front of a speeding bus. The gates of hell cannot stand up against the forces of Jesus. And so Jesus' ambition for the church, Jesus' ambition for his called out people is that we will be on the offensive, that we'll carry the truth of the gospel to those who have doubt. That we will be forces for change among those who are impoverished, that we will stand up for those who are experiencing injustice, that we will support one another in the midst of the trials and the difficulties that are coming our way, that whatever happens to the church, the church in this world, local congregations, whatever difficulties we encounter, we wax and we wane, we have growing numbers, we have shrinking numbers. Jesus promises he will take responsibility for his church. He will build his church. And the forces of evil against which he is sending us out will not stand a chance.